you've read the title, seen the thumbnail, and you're gonna point out this guy, then alright, sure, I'll take it. The first person who posts that will be pinned and like that comment.
This is going to be somewhat controversial. I expect a bit of critical commentary, and that's okay. It's good to have one of these every now and then. This one isn't really serious or meant to call anybody out. As much as it sounds like I'm picking on someone, I'm not thinking of any particular person. This is about fake experts, and this represents a certain stereotype or a certain set of behaviors which you might come across in your own experience, in your own archery career or your life in general. And this is inspired by other channels talking about fake experts in their field. And this isn't meant to be an attack on people who love the sport. And I'll be very clear here, I'm not going to confuse enthusiasm with expertise. People have a right to be passionate about what they do. This doesn't mean they know everything about that particular topic or archery in general, and there are certain things we have to be careful for. So this video is going to go through my reasons as to why people might be considered to be quote-unquote fake experts, and how this might influence the way we see people as well as how we see ourselves, and perhaps what to watch out for. I do not have a single doubt in my mind that anyone who does archery, who enjoys it enough to share with other people, do it for the right reasons. There is no malicious person who is spreading misinformation. There may be misleading or inaccurate or partially wrong, but nobody is motivated to go out there and spread bad information. That's something that's really important to clarify. So again, we're not calling out particular people. We are addressing certain attitudes or mindsets which may indicate that somebody does not have the expertise they might claim to have. The purpose of this discussion is twofold. The first is for the observer to help you recognize how much you should weigh someone's opinion or perspective. If someone clearly doesn't know what they're talking about, then you shouldn't judge them harshly, but you might not consider their opinion or their information to be as accurate or valuable as someone who can substantiate their expertise. The second purpose is to help ourselves recognize what we are doing. Sometimes we are prone to doing things and saying things which actually betray a certain biased mindset, and therefore we get lumped into the category of fake experts. So like I said, if we're not doing this out of malice, we're doing this to help each other recognize what are some of the positive behaviors and mindsets, and what are ones which are less trustworthy to the common person. The first giveaway of someone who might not be qualified to be an expert is the phrase, archers in the past. And this could be any variation of that phrase, could be archers in history, historical archers, that sort of thing. And the reason why this particular phrase or this opening or sentence starter is a giveaway is because it's such a vague and broad statement that this person is referring to a particular point in time and a particular style of archery, and not considering the context and diversity in which archery is practiced. And you'll see multiple claims like archers in the past held multiple arrows in their hand, or archers in the past shot really quickly, or they used really high-powered bows, and so on. And these things are not false. Archers in the past did these things. But we're talking about a time frame of thousands of years across the entire world. So at some point somewhere, somebody or group of people or a culture did this. It doesn't mean you are 100% right, nor does it mean you're 100% wrong. But the problem is that without contextualizing what you are talking about, you are making very broad generalizations, or perhaps extrapolating a small sample size to represent the entirety of archery and archery history. It's misleading. It's just not fair to put every single style of archery under one umbrella. Hence why the number one giveaway is when people say archers in the past. Which archers, which bit of history, where? So remember, just as one group of archers would do one style or one thing, a different group wouldn't do that. So that's why we can't generalize. The second sign of a fake expert is when we start seeing more complicated, or should I say more contrived scenarios which are pure fabrications. I came across a meme posted by Matt Easton from Scholar Gladiatoria a few days ago, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. It's the internet logic, and the meme goes, archery wasn't effective because swords can chop off arms. And that was absolutely ridiculous. But the whole point of the joke is it represents a certain logic which commentators love to go through. This thing didn't work because of this thing. There's no exceptions, no ifs, no buts. It's a hard and fast rule. This thing existed, therefore this thing must have been done. Examples I've seen include things like archers fought at close distance, therefore they must have shot really quickly. And disregarding the fact that you might have had 5,000 archers shooting at once, of course, if you're that close, you must shoot exceptionally quickly, disregarding the fact that it is actually physically impossible to do so with certain equipment in certain contexts. Again, Matt Easton's favorite word, context, we use this a lot in history, but there's a reason why I do that. I've seen logic like, well, shields blocked arrows, therefore all archers were useless. Again, this is almost universally false. Archers might not be, effective in killing people through shields, but shields didn't completely make archers redundant. One of the most common examples I come across in my discussions is the hypothetical bandit scenario. If you get ambushed by 5 bandits, an archer must shoot all 5 really quickly. Or they could not, they might just die, Now, of course, people are rushing to say, but we don't know everything about archery. There are many things we don't know about historical archery. People have to rediscover things. Okay, that's true. We don't know everything about archery. But many people who are rational and do history will consider evidence-based approaches. What evidence is there to suggest that something might have existed? Because firstly, we can't prove a negative. But if we want to make a claim or an assertion that a group of people did a certain technique or they achieved certain feats, what proof do we have that this actually happened? And just because there's an absence of evidence doesn't mean that we can make things up. That's the line I draw. Is this scenario plausible? Has it happened? And do we have any evidence that it played out the way you think it might have played out? And if there's no evidence to suggest any of these things, I'm not saying you're wrong, so I can't say you are wrong. I can't disprove this. But I can say that the evidence is weak. And given what we do know from our physical practice and continuation of archery, our research and our historical sources, certain things may be less plausible than others. But people who continually push that line that this scenario actually happened without any proof, I think they will fall into that fake expert category. We can't speak that authoritatively on hypothetical situations which we have no evidence of. Number 3 on my list is perhaps something which I think more people will agree with, and that's when people declare something is wrong, like just outright wrong. You often see this in comment sections, not just in my videos, but basically any instance of, say, a movie, a TV show, a video game, even just artwork which depict archery in specific ways. Now, sometimes these depictions are in fact wrong. They might show things in the wrong technique or the wrong way. But there are many which show a correct version of archery, but people identified as wrong based on incorrect assumptions. One of my examples which I'm thinking of is a Reddit thread where someone shared an amazing piece of artwork of a Mongolian archer. And gee, half the comments must have filled up with experts saying, that's the wrong side of the bow. Of course, we're talking about Mongolian archers shooting a thumb draw with the arrows on the right side of the bow. And all these people who are archery experts, who've done archery for years or claim such, don't recognize that there are alternate styles of archery which aren't the same as theirs. And that's why number 3 on my list is claiming things are wrong. A true expert will recognize what they don't know. And if they don't know something, they don't comment on that. Or if they do comment on that, they will make it very clear that that is their opinion and their understanding, and they could be wrong. That's a very important line to draw. And truly, we can't really say many people, if any, are true experts of archery as a whole. And that's just point number 2 and 1. We can't generalize on things. We can't just say this is every kind of archery. You might be an expert in training modern Olympic archery. Doesn't mean you're qualified to talk about historical archery. You might be an expert on Asiatic bows. Doesn't mean you're an expert on compound bows, and so on. So people who are more qualified to speak on their fields of expertise will draw clearer boundaries and make it clear if they're opining on an issue or a topic compared to providing factual information. Number 4 on my list is perhaps a bit more controversial, and that is people who believe that they are absolutely right. This is the opposite before, where people say you are wrong. This is the kind of person who says, well, I'm right. And they will deny that their technique has any faults or any issues. Now, I'm not targeting particular people. This isn't about self-taught archers who make things work. But there are a lot of people who will say, I've been shooting for 30 years, it works for me. Of course it does. I'm not saying it doesn't work for you. But it doesn't mean it is the best way, the most efficient way, or the way which is taught. Now, again, archery is one of those things which has multiple correct options. There is no one correct style, and people have variations. But when people hold their own variation above all others and say it's superior and therefore other people are wrong and they are right and can't be challenged on explaining why it works or why something else doesn't work, that's perhaps a bit of a sign that this person should not be trusted or valued as highly. You can appreciate input and its perspective, but the mindset might not be productive to work with. Now, what a real expert will do, more likely, is they will factor in why it might be right. When they're challenged to explain their particular technique, again, they might be very clear, this is what I do. It might not work for you. They'll be very clear on why they think it works. And some people have more of an understanding of biomechanics and science and so on. Others go more instinct and feel, whatever works for you. But people who can recognize the limit of their knowledge are perhaps more trustworthy and have more weight in their opinions compared to someone who is very stubborn in their mindset and the way of archery. Number 5 on my list is people who make very broad and vague claims and are unwilling or unable to prove it. We'll see this very often in certain situations and certain video topics sometimes, where people will say, I don't need this technique or this piece of equipment, I shoot fine without it. Maybe they might be having a go at Olympic archery and they'll go, oh, we don't need these sights and stabilizers, I can shoot fine. Well, what does that mean exactly? I can't doubt that you shoot fine. I've got no reason to assume that you're lying or trying to falsify your skill level. But if you're going to make a claim, you need to be qualified with some kind of evidence to substantiate exactly what you mean. So if you shoot fine, does that mean you shoot a world record at 70 meters? Because if you can, then we'd love to see your record. If you just mean that you can shoot a dinner plate at 10 meters, then well, yeah, of course you can shoot fine. That's a pretty easy target. So without some kind of objective measurement, it's very hard to take any of these claims as they are. If people will be more specific, like how far are you shooting, what size target are you shooting at, how often are you hitting it, that's a bit more believable. If we can back it up with video evidence, then that's even more believable. And again, there's no reason why we can assume, or we should assume, the worst in people. But we're comparing very different things here. If you're going to highlight how modern archery is so lame and you can shoot just as well as everybody else, then compete against a modern Olympian or a modern compound shooter and do outscore them. If you can, then you absolutely prove your worth, and we should believe you. But if you can't and are willing to, then I'm afraid that we can't consider your opinion as valid or viable just because there's no proof behind that. And that's perhaps my personal pet peeve in discussions, is people always claim they're really, really good. I want to believe you, but I just need you to show me. And if you show me evidence that you can do these things to the same quality, the same accuracy, the same precision and consistency, then you are absolutely amazing. And I will give you all credit for that. But that's something we'd all watch out for, is whether we are making claims specific to a particular context or scenario or style, as compared to just making broad claims like, I'm that good. So that's my list of, well, 5 things which I think might identify a fake expert. Again, I'm not here to label people as fake experts and call them out and cancel them. I don't believe it's cancel culture. This is more of a conversation starter to raise more awareness of what people do online and in real life, as well as what we do ourselves and how we can fall into the same traps. What do you think? Do you agree with my list of 5 criteria? And what other signs would you include in terms of identifying a fake expert? Post your thoughts below. This is NUSensei. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.